Rise, renew, reconnect. Welcome to From the Ashes, a podcast where every episode ignites hope and healing. I'm your host, Valerie Huang Beck, and I'm on a mission to help you embrace your unique potential and become the vibrant visionary you knew you were meant to be.
And the fire in the darkest night, the phoenix burns. It's ready for flight. Shadows may come, try to tear you apart, but you're the flame that
All right, everyone, welcome back to From the Ashes. I'm Valerie Beck, and today I have with me my guest, Tom Sun. And Tom Sun is a storyteller, entrepreneur, and creative director whose journey has been defined by resilience, faith, and the relentless pursuit of purpose. And that is why I brought him on today. And actually, Tom was introduced to me by one of my friends and my client, Alvin. And when we were introduced, it was really just to get some insight on how to market. But then Tom just asked me if I would be willing to read a manuscript of his upcoming book, and I said yes, and to my surprise, not only was it a page turner, but I finished in, like, 2 nights because I couldn't stop reading it. It just spoke to me in a way that was really resonant. Yeah, so I'm really excited to have you on the show today, Tom, to talk about that and everything else that's going on.
Thank you for having me. First off, I want to say big shout out to Alvin. He's such a good guy, and thank you for taking the time to even read my manuscript. And I I had a chance to look into what you do on on your Instagram and everything, and you have so much you do for people as a service, and I appreciate you for that. I think I picked a really great person to look over my work.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, when you gave me that book, I had a feeling like it would be something that I'd be really into and just the angle that you come from as well. And one of the things that I really appreciate about people that I resonate with is that you're real and you don't hide the messy bits and you're not afraid to show like the just the reality of the struggle. And the reality of life is that it's not always roses and ponies and whatever. So, but in spite of that, being able to really weave you especially, this ability to weave a story and then to see so much of the silver lining in everything.
Mm.
So with that, I'll ask kind of like the first question is like, what share with the audience, like, how did you arrive at the pursuit of purpose?
The pursuit of purpose. So I would say it has a lot to do with like the title of your podcast, actually, like the fire. It feels like, there were so many, there's so many moments. It's never just one moment that leads you to something. It's a series of things that culminated into, what I describe as like a complete rock bottom, a burnout, right? And through the darkest places, the most beautiful things usually come out, and I think that a lot of people could probably resonate from that, right? Like whether it's death, whether it's betrayal, grief, right? Like whatever it is, I think I saw this on a podcast one time. Rock bottom is not the what happens. It's not the severity of the situation. It's the situation that makes you change.
Mhm.
Right, and I found to be so profound. So, when that did happen, the first thing that I wanted was to find purpose, and the pursuit of purpose for me was very much guided by God, but I think for anybody, it takes a want to overcome your situation, and you have to get to a point where your mind is greater than the situation for you to be able to make the purpose make sense. If that if you're following me, that's generally what this book started off to be about.
Can you give people a sense of who you are in terms of like what do you feel have been the circumstances that have led you to your rock bottoms?
Well, I like to think of myself as just the most regular guy. Like I'm the guy that you walk past at a supermarket. I'm the guy that you probably have driven past and, I'm not like I wouldn't say I'm like a master or anything. I'm not a celebrity, right? Like not, I'm not super rich or whatever. Like I'm just the regular guy that you would walk by, right? But in my life, there's been so many challenges. And as a person, I had to, one, really, really grow up. Growing up to me means having to figure out my problems and not be my problem, right?
Mhm.
So if you were to have asked me this 10 years ago, I would have told you that I am a person that I'm just grinding. I'm just trying to make it. But for today, my answer is I'm a person that just wants to be a service to others. I'm a person that I find I find immense joy in being able to know that even if it's just through my stories, I've helped someone. And that's how I'm able to move with intention. And that's how I believe my faith has led me to this situation where I could even write a book and be on this podcast, just to be able to tell a story and hopefully it resonates with someone. That's who I want to be defined as.
Yeah. I think for a lot of us who've gone through the from the ashes journey at least once, the likelihood is that we start off as what we would probably consider like a normie, right? Like we're just going about our lives doing what our parents told us to do or what
Yeah.
society told us we should do. Both you and I come from a Taiwanese background. Our parents are
Yes.
from Taiwan. And at least for me growing up, that really meant like you go to school and you listen to your elders and you get good grades and you go to college and all this stuff. And I
Yeah.
followed the script for a very long time until it didn't work for me anymore. Not everybody gets to a point where that happens. Some people can get by in their life and undisturbed, right? But then there are the people who for some reason the script doesn't work anymore. Did you ever come across that point for yourself?
Absolutely. Similar to you, I mean, the script works for the person that I think is able to focus, right? And I've never been the person to be able to just sit there and focus. I'm a very spontaneous. I like to use my imagination a lot. And for the most part, being, studying to be a lawyer or being in the medical field does not allow you to to exercise those. What was it like for you? Is something similar?
You know what? I think it was because I've always been a dancer,
Oh,
and,
there you go.
that really took over. It was almost like it pulled me out because like, there was nothing more that I wanted to do at some point than dance, and, like, there was no room for that like, the framework that I was like, the script that I was given, and it wasn't even, like, a script that was externally enforced. It was actually, like, internal. My
Mm,
parents never told me, like, you can't do this, you can't do that." But for some reason, like, the people around me, right, and then, like, just the way that I was treated made me internally want to be, at some level, the obedient, good daughter. And and that dictated my choices, even though so there was the part of me that was, like, being the rebel and the dancer and the artist, and then
yeah.
there was the part of me that was being the obedient, follow the rules, follow the guidelines, do the thing, and eventually it just one had to win over the other. Yeah. So,
And
yeah.
and the Asian family environment, I mean, there's so many gossiping and talking and comparing, like, I'm sure to some extent for both of us, like, that's something that either will drive you or drive you away, and for me, it drove me away really fast because I knew early on that I'm I'm not I'm not that guy, and I didn't want to be, you know?
Yeah. Well, then also, like, looking at your family members. And have distinctly remembered in specific periods in time. It's like, "Oh, that cousin's depressed. Oh, that cousin, like, is a real
Yes,
people pleaser, and she's making herself miserable." I didn't have too many conscious thoughts, but it's like, "Well, why is it like that?" Like, they're
right.
so accomplished, they're so educated. There's this part of them that's unhappy. So,
I
yeah,
think I think it's there's a lot to do with just, and this is not exclusive to Asian people. This is to everybody.
yeah.
We live in a society where we constantly feel like we're defined by our past and we're worried about our future, right? And I I feel like through dance is an art that requires you to be present, right? And in the present time, you feel this, whether it's joy or accomplishment, right? Like that's what's important. That's what also creativity does. Is like whenever I'm present and I'm just designing this logo for my client and I find out, wow, like this logo tells a story that my client's brand is supposed to tell. That brings me more joy than actually collecting the check.
Mhm. Absolutely, and, I find the same thing, and this is something I'm actually working on right now is because I know that I have certain superpowers when it comes to dance and
Mm,
movement arts and being able actually to teach that and helping people find that presence within the movement, and I'm not really utilizing that in my business right now, so one thing that I'm trying to work out is, like, how to bring this to people through what I do through my work, because it is so powerful.
it
And
is.
you're right, because what really lights me up is being able to see people's transformation.
Mm.
That's that's what drives me, right? And you're right, the check doesn't matter so much. Sometimes that's to my detriment, but like it really does there's nothing that feeds my soul more than helping facilitate what's already the power that's already within.
I love that. I love the way you put that because it's, you know, what what we have within our abilities and what we have within ourselves is a culmination of every step we walk in life until today, right? And to be able to allow that to help someone, that's I feel like that's the most important job we could have as a human to human, like we're all neighbors, we're all brothers and sisters, we're all humans, and what's more important than uplifting the next person, right? Like, of course you have to care about yourself, of course, but what's more important than extending that to the next person? I personally, that's the part that took me a long time to find out, right?
Yeah.
It it almost feels like before I always needed an answer to every single thing. Like, why should I? Why should I help you? Why should I care about you? Like, I have 1,000 problems on my plate right now. Why should I help you? Right? But that's again going back to purpose, right? Purpose allows you, if your purpose is to help people, and I think purpose doesn't have to be a paragraph long. It could also be 3 words is I'm going to help, right? And some people help animals, some people help humans, some people help whatever, right? The thing is, if it's that simple, there's nothing you can do in life that's wrong. There's no mistakes. Every mistake you make is just a lesson, and that's it's a cliche thing to say, but that's why it's so true. Because I feel like when you talk to successful people, even like the most richest people that you may or may not agree with or like, but when you talk to them, it's like, well, what made you rich? Most of the time they say, well, I solve people's problems, right? And I think that says a lot.
Yeah, and this whole solve people's problems, it's kind of like the essence of business, and yet it's quite elusive, right? And I think it's
Mhm.
actually quite elusive for the people sometimes that are purpose driven because, like, it is we get very caught up in, like, what problem are we supposed to be solving? But I would like if you are willing to, because, like, this was such a big part of your story is that
Mhm.
you told the story of your friend Cherry
Yes.
in the book. And actually what I wanna ask, because this is kind of like a spiritual moment for you, is, I think at that rate, you were probably not quite in tune to the "I wanna help people" yet,
No,
right?
I was not.
And so what were the circumstances around, like, tell the story, but also, like, what were the circumstances around the way of thinking that led you kind of to almost that, like, crisis moment?
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna move even a little bit further back just to give context, right? I'm someone that grew up with my deck of cards, right? And in poker, you just have your hand, right? I have my hand, and my hand, in my opinion, wasn't great, right? I faced immigration issues, I faced financial issues, I faced issue with who I was, right? So in the in the essence of dealing with it, I preferred escape and I preferred being very defensive of myself, right? So with escape, it was I focused on partying. I focused on, you know, just having a few hours of not thinking about my troubles, right? And I did that for a long time, a lot longer than I wish. Not I wish, I don't regret it, but just longer than it should have been. And then when I finally found my first salvation, it was not the defining salvation moment. It was simply that I wanted to get serious and do business, right? So I thought I had momentum. I had thought, wow, like I figured it out. I went through this marketing internship where I really, really busted my ass. Like I I lived in Ontario at the time. I drove to LA every single day. And not just driving to LA every single day, it was for an unpaid internship at a marketing agency, very well recognized marketing agency. So I'm proud of that. Right. But every day I was going, I was losing money. It's like $20 to get there and pay for parking, or it's $20 to take the Metro link and get out there. And alongside with all the things that could happen during that trip, right? I did that for so long. I got out of the internship and I was ready to just go 1,000 miles per hour. And I did. And I found success. I got to a point where I told my parents, I'm gonna pay your rent for you. I told myself, I'm gonna save so much money that I'm gonna change my life. And for about 6 months, I did do that. I got to that point. And I also did everything I could to do everything on my own and do when I talk about clients, I'm talking about marketing clients that hire me to help them with anything they need for digital marketing. So I was doing graphic design. I was doing everything. I 1,000 miles per hour was too fast for me. And in 6 months, my body physically didn't hold up.
Mm.
And all of those promises that I made, all of those decisions I made, which I thought was rational, but it was very irrational, crashed on me. I imagine being in a situation where not only can you not pay your rent, but you can't pay your parents' rent, right? Imagine being the Asian kid who wants to be a good son, but you couldn't. You failed. And the thought of just how anyone would look at me crushed me, right? It was the ultimate mistake. So in panic mode, I started destroying my credit, right? I was maxing out my cards. I was taking out loans, and that can only last you for so long. If you're not at least balancing out that income, you're it's only sustainable until the banks start telling you no. So when it hit that, at that moment, I had I think it was like my sixth rejection for the loan. I was talking, I went out to the bank, I mean, not the bank, the loan officer's office, and it was a no, and rent was due in a few days. I was already behind on my own rent, and I was just in the car, and yeah, I couldn't I didn't know what to do. I broke down. Didn't know what to do. It was so defeating. Um, I've had moments similar before where I only had $9 in my pocket, hated it, right? But this was, damn, like I thought I did it. I thought I made it, but I didn't. I failed even harder. So, you know, at that moment, I got this call and it's a life-changing call. So it was my friend Cherry. My friend Cherry, we went to college together. College at this point was about, let me see, like 6 years removed, you know? So I haven't seen Cherry in so long. She moved out to New York, but when we were in college, we naturally became friends. I don't even know how we became friends. It just felt like, wow, I'm lucky to know this person. I've always felt that way. But I guess that's why when she called and she was like, hey, I have a layover. It's not even like, oh, like I moved back to California with it. No, it's like, hey, I have a layover. I'm here for a day and let's meet up. At the moment, I'm, at the car. I was like, yeah, I I I need this. So we go to Pasadena, we go eat, and she's just talking about all the ways God has blessed her. She Right before she moved out to New York, I had a few moments where I felt disconnected from her because she always talked about God. And I'm someone that believes in science at that point. To me, it's, well, none of that makes sense. Who wrote the Bible? Who decides this and that? And none of it made sense. Plus, my family's Buddhist, right? So I just felt like, mm, I don't know about that, right?
Mhm.
But as she's talking to me, she was just talking about her blessings. She worked for the NBA All-Star Game as a makeup artist. She worked for Armani. She was on a couple studios that we could only dream of as college students, right? We were like, one day we'll do this, we'll do this. She's doing that stuff. She's on flights, getting free upgrades and visiting different countries, which is my personal goal, So hearing all that, I was so happy for her, but I also, you think about where I just was earlier that day, very, very down on myself, right?
Mhm.
And during that day, she started talking to me about God. And she actually said, Tom, God wanted me to talk to you. And I don't know why, but at that moment, I believed her. It was weird, but I believed her. Right. And she started talking to me about God. And she said, God has been watching you behind closed doors. And God feels sad. He's seen you trying really hard, you know,
Mhm.
and I was trying really hard. No one knows about this. She shouldn't have known about that, right? She knew that I I was writing about these things to myself. She talked about letters to myself, which is insane because if you guys read my book, I added some of the letters to myself on the book just because of how almost ridiculous it was that she brought that up, right? But these are real letters that I wrote, and through that conversation, she talked about giving God a chance. And I tried so hard in my pessimistic mind to find holes. I couldn't wait to be like, oh, I got you. That now I know it's not real.
Mhm.
That was honestly how defensive I was as a person.
Mhm.
I needed things to make sense. I needed the answers, right? But there wasn't. That never came. And in that conversation, it's heavy to think about right now, but at that moment, it was peaceful. It was like someone someone heard you. And I don't know, Val, have you ever had that feeling when like you just kind of feel like someone finally understands you and knows, and you know you kind of feel like like I everything someone understands me.
Yeah.
I felt that probably for the first time. And to today, it makes me almost almost like defensive to talk about this because it feels like maybe people won't believe me. It
Mhm.
feels so profound. But the only thing I could do is speak my truth, and the truth was sitting through that day, Cherry asked me to pray, to hold her hand and pray. And during the prayer, she asked God to keep watching over me, but also to give me a chance to accept him. Right. And so there was there was something she said. She said, within the next 7 days, if you want to accept God, you just pray. And I ultimately accepted. You know, it, I don't know if you could relate to how maybe your family is your family Buddhist, or are they religious at all?
They're Buddhist, but I we're all kind of agnostic
Oh, okay.
somewhat, but I
Got
I
you. Got you.
I can tell you a little bit about that in a second. I want you to finish your story.
Okay. Okay. Well, I I felt torn, right? I didn't want to betray my religion. I didn't I don't know, like I grew up believing in that Buddhist. My family, it always has a statue of Guanxin Pusa,
Mhm.
and she's almost like the Mary figure in the Buddhist world. A motherly figure. I didn't want to betray them. I was very torn. So between that day and the seventh day, I I almost rejected the idea. I wanted to receive it, but I almost was also naturally rejecting it. But the day came and I knew that I had to pray. I just, I had to, you know. So I did it. Praying was not easy. It was in the morning, probably like 3, 4 in the morning. I just did it. And, you know, I didn't know how to pray. I remembered what Cherry said. I remembered her telling me to just accept, but that's all I knew. So in the first few seconds, I felt stupid. Like here I am in the middle of the room, you know, on my knees. Like, what am I doing? Right. But it was also powerful because it was me giving up my insecurities, giving up who I thought I was.
Mhm.
And I accepted it. I prayed and in my prayer, I said, God, I don't know how to accept your hand, but I know you reached out and I want to accept it. And I pray for guidance. And this is to this day in my prayer, I tell God, thank you for another day. Thank you for place to eat. I'm sorry, place to sleep, food to eat, people to love, for hope. and for opportunities for you to have a plan for me and your guidance. Um, I've never asked God for $1 million. I've never
Mm.
asked God for things. I ask God for guidance. I've always have since that day till now. And, you know, God always comes through. Since that day, He's always come through. Everything I asked for, everything I had hoped in my life, from finding my wife to getting a job to buying a house to traveling, all of these things He's provided. It's so profound to think that this all started from that one phone call by charity.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Tom. Um, it's, totally understand almost like the defensiveness, right? But
Yeah,
what I actually what I fundamental believe is that none of us can really dictate or define another person's connection to divine source. It's
yeah,
actually very personal, right?
it is.
Yeah. It's very personal. My experience of spirituality may be entirely different, but
Sure.
but I think also that there are connecting threads. And some of these threads are surrender.
Mhm.
Um, I'm going to get into this because this is a word that you use specifically in your book, obedience
Yes.
and gratitude. Three very fundamental mind states, actually, that allow us to connect with uh, divine source. Um, so even though I was brought up in a Buddhist system, we were not religious. So it wasn't
Mm,
a source of worship. It was actually, and we were not obligated to practice. However, it was kind of just like the background philosophy and identity. And so I never felt like I would ever betray that because it was not something that was to be betrayed. It was just there.
mm.
I've been to Bible school as a kid because my babysitter was Christian. And then, I kind of just got exposed to all sorts of different religions, so I ended up being very agnostic for a while and very questioning. Ultimately, I went through severe depression, and the way that I asked for help was I put myself in a 10-day silent meditation, and that happened to be a Buddhist retreat.
Really?
Yes. It was a system of meditation called Vipassana, and it was practiced by the Buddha. It was and it essentially it really is very practical at the end of the day. It was sitting in silence, no interaction, scanning your body over and over and over again, 10 hours a day.
Wow, 10 hours?
Yeah.
Wow.
Ultimately, that did lead me to become closer to understanding Buddhism and, my default, I guess, religion, but what then it led me to the Vedic sciences.
Okay,
And that's why I study Ayurveda, and now I'm a holistic health practitioner. So, but Ayurveda is a highly spiritual medicine because of where it comes
okay.
from. And so there's a lot of talk about this divine connection, divine source. And it's not explicitly said, but it's like your connection to God. And I think what's lovely about Ayurveda and the Vedic sciences is that is left up somewhat for your own experience and
So,
interpretation.
can I ask, do you feel like you need to fully understand to accept it?
No. Um, because I think what ultimately the life journey is the discovery.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's why it's more powerful for you, because you're in a state where you don't have to know why. You don't need a answer for every reason for you to be in it. right? You just you know that that's what that's what is resonating and even inspiring to you physically and internally. You know, I've seen people who are very religious and they they have to search for answers for everything.
Mm,
And you know what? Not that it's a bad thing, but I also find a pattern where it seems like they get more lost.
mm,
It's like a maze where it's almost like you research so much into this specific path that you want to take in the maze, but it's a maze.
mhm.
So you still end up getting lost and you're just that much more angry because that wasn't the way out, of the maze. That's kind of how I'm interpreting and also understanding what you're saying and also kind of connecting it back to what I was saying.
Yeah, and I think that's a really eloquent way to put it. It's it's not about really deciding, right? Deciding means that you actually have to take out like, you have to ascertain certain things as false. It's not
Mhm.
that. It's it's just a commitment to the discovery, like I said.
Yeah,
And that's actually faith, right? It's like
it is.
you don't know the truth, you don't know what's gonna happen, but you are actually committing to your highest self and the highest good,
Yeah,
right? And that's guiding your choices, uh, in good faith that that's ultimately what will lead you to wherever it is that you need to be.
I actually there was a moment when I was praying to God, right? And at that point in time, it was maybe for like only a day or two. I really wanted to understand. Well, I believed in science so much, right? Like God guide me to just kind of understand, you know, am I supposed to know I was wrong to believe in science? Right? It's just this random like conflict in my head, right? But it also I recognize that it bothered me. So I prayed to just understand. Right. And throughout the next 2 days, I just came across so much content about how we don't know anything of what's deep in the ocean. Right. We don't know anything. We don't know if there's giant animal sea creatures that still exist in our own planet. And we don't know if there's aliens in outer space, right? There's so many people that believe that there's already aliens on Earth. Well, there's other people that don't believe in aliens at all. We don't know everything. So that what that says is science doesn't know everything either,
Right.
right? So if I was so certain in science, then can I explain can I explain like everything in science? Can I explain what exists, what doesn't exist? How time parallels work, right? Like I can't explain any of that. So what that taught me, that small experience taught me was, well, isn't that the same thing as what I'm doing in my walk with God? But in my walk with God, I'm choosing to believe in his his plan for me and that I could put him in any situation and that will be my purpose.
Yeah.
So I always think about that when I hear people questioning whether it's religion or anything.
Yeah. Well, if you think about the true pursuit of science, right? Science is also the pursuit of truth in a different way. In its purest form, it is always to be in the discovery of the truth.
Mhm.
But, it's human nature to be impatient. And
That's
so
true.
that's why religion and science and every other thing, when our ego gets in the way and we get impatient and we want to declare, like, this is the truth, I've already arrived there. that's where we run into problems,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's for ourselves or for other people, when we declare, like, this is it, I don't want to go any farther than this, then you block yourself from the process of discovery and ultimately that connection to truth, to God, to whatever it might be.
Yes. I agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you believe, because another part of what I wanted to make a point in my book was in mindset.
Mm.
Um, you know, Val, I'm sure you've went through your own set of trials and tribulations in your life. What was your mindset during the worst of them?
Yeah. My mindset during the worst of it. Um, I've had so many rock bottom points.
Yeah.
And I've actually written it. I've written an entire chapter. I was telling you, I'm writing a part of a book, and then I go back and I remembered, oh, there was a point before that even. I remember because I was at NYU for grad school, and I was
Okay.
staying part-time up, on the Upper West, not West, it was like, are you familiar with New York?
Not really. I
Okay.
always wanted to go.
Oh, yeah, I was staying up in Washington Heights part-time, and I had this
Okay.
little room in this, tiny apartment. And there was a day where I just kind of, like, psychologically was done, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs. I was by myself.
Mm,
People might have heard me, I don't know, but I was,
right.
like, it was just like I just screamed for a good 10 to 15 minutes, and no one came to help. And
Mm,
I just felt so lost and alone.
yeah.
Um And just hopeless even, like, and I don't it's really interesting looking back at it because I was screaming not because I was in danger. I wasn't broke even. I was just, like, in over my head. I was in grad school in a program where I morally disagreed with what they were teaching me. I was stuck. I was studying until, like, mid hours of the morning and trying to make my life work and trying to somehow still be happy and all of that, and I just didn't see how life could work. That was the start of a very, very long journey, like, of self-discovery and kind of, like, starting to really peel back layers of self-hate, layers of conditioning, layers of everything that I was taught about the world that I realized was no longer true, or it wasn't true to
And
begin with.
and that's so brave of you to do, right? Because in order for you to to get to overcome it, right, you had to make a decision to try and strip that away, right? You chose to understand it, you chose to approach it, and you chose to find a solution,
Yeah, and
right?
to commit,
And
and that commitment has taken me to
commit, yes.
today. This
Yeah.
was
Like,
this was, like, 12 years ago,
wow.
right? 13 years
Congratulations.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
You know, it's one of those things where I'm gonna guess, but before you screamed that day, your mindset was probably you were your situation. You were under that pressure, and that pressure defined you. You were the culmination of everything that you liked and didn't like. But, you know, it takes a bit of I don't wanna put it in a I don't wanna say delusion in a way that's bad.
mhm,
I wanna say delusion in a way where there's a delusion that you need to be like, "You know what? I'm better. I'm gonna overcome." You have to have the delusion in order for that point to be a reality, or else you're always gonna stay matching the energy of your situation
yeah,
in your mind and in your soul. you have to make the decision to be above it. And I wish a lot more people could understand that. I have people very close to me that will always prevent themselves from having that delusion because they think that's silly.
Mm,
I personally think it's it's not only not silly, but it's the most important thing you need to have in this life. Unfortunately, delusion seems like a negative word,
yeah,
but to me it's not. To me, delusion is this imagination of your potential.
yeah.
And here's an example I really want to give. Think about a door-to-door salesman, right? And I think maybe you read this in the book, but a door-to-door salesman either could be this this so annoying, like, oh my gosh, just shut up. I'm gonna hang up. I'm gonna close the door on you, right? I don't have time for you. But it could also be a person that's trying to feed his family, right? And if you have the delusion to be like, I'm gonna be a good person, and that takes effort, by the way, right? Like
Mhm.
it's way easier to be negative than positive. Positively takes work. So if you have the delusion of my I'm going to be someone that uplifts others and I'm going to be someone that is not negative, that interaction of you actually talking to him and just treating him like a person, imagine what that does for him. You could be another closed door and shut him out. And that might, how do you know that might not be the moment where he decides I can't take this job anymore? Or maybe you give him hope, right? Hey, this job's not that bad, right? That decision, it's about how you project yourself. It's about being present, having your mind above your problems, having the delusion to be above your situation.
I'm gonna add to this as well because I think really in the past 12 to 13 years after that moment, it was really governed by this ultimate decision that I'm not going to be part of the problem,
Okay.
and I'm going to be part of the solution. Whatever that takes, I'm gonna do that, and whatever suffering that comes with that, I'm going to also take. And that's a like, I I can't it's funny because I can't imagine living life another way, even though it's given me a very, very particular set of life circumstances. Like, I don't think I could have done it another way, and
Mhm.
that is where the obedience part comes in.
Yes.
Because if there's something that I've always been one of those people, like, I don't necessarily believe in God, but I do believe in a higher power in some way, shape, or form, but
Yeah.
there was a decision that was made that I am going to do this, and I don't know what that's gonna look like, but I have always been obedient to that mission, and I don't even like, I can't
Yeah.
imagine a way of being that is otherwise. So, you know
What's your definition of obedience if you could put it into two sentences?
yeah, and this is a very specific type of obedience.
Sure.
It's like you follow your convictions.
Okay.
Yeah. The convictions are based on your values, right? Your values of how to treat people, how the world should relate, right? Your vision of I have a vision of a harmonious planet. So I have a vision like of people treating each other with respect and dignity. Um, and that including myself in that vision, right?
Yeah.
That everyone can thrive. That's a vision.
Yes.
So I have certain convictions around that vision. Like I believe that is our birthright. And so I am obedient to that mission.
So you're obedient to your own better being, right? Like your how do I say this? It's like you have to be keeping yourself in check with you making sure that that mission is what you're working towards.
And that's purpose.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's purpose. And then,
Yes.
I emailed you earlier on about the book and how you talked about obedience, and like it is in the Vedic sciences, there's this concept called dharma, which is if
Okay.
you which is your actually it's obligation, duty, and also purpose, right? It's
Oh, okay.
roughly translated from Sanskrit. That's what it is.
Interesting.
It's
Okay.
your like kind of like the divine purpose of your life that you are meant to actually obey in that way. And it's like, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to follow the path that your soul is meant to? Um, yeah.
I always feel like in specific hard times in my life, right? I'm always reminded of what you're describing as dharma.
Mm,
You know, like for example, my father had a heart attack not that long ago. You know, very challenging time, and I think about it like this. Right before I met Cherry, that moment, right, it was rock bottom for me, right. But if you think about it, this heart attack situation is worse than that, right? It's a
yeah.
potential loss. It's worse, but it wasn't worse in a sense of that was my rock bottom. It was a situation for me to step up because of who I am now,
Mm,
right? No matter what would have happened, I had to step up and be above and be there for to take care of things, right? I wrote this list of beliefs I had to unlearn on one of my layers in myself. And in this list, I have it open right now. I wrote beliefs I have to unlearn. If I'm not hustling, I'm failing. Unlearn that. My worth is tied to my productivity. Unlearn that. I have to do this alone. Rest is earned, not necessary. If people don't celebrate me, I'm not enough. My circumstances define my mindset. Things have to make sense before I can have faith. I need to feel good before I could do good. That was my list. And I wrote that with the thought of this is this is the list of what will keep me in check to be to be someone with a perspective that's above what I'm facing at the moment. Because God forbid, but you don't know what could happen tomorrow. It could be worse, right? It could be the worst thing you've ever faced in your life. But this list will keep you grounded, so it won't be your rock bottom.
mhm.
So
Yeah. I think that's beautiful. It's like keeping the ego in check, right?
yes, yes,
And we have to constantly do that. Actually, I find myself I have to constantly do that because like it will, life just happens and then all of a sudden you're chasing, this external vision of success again. And you're wondering
yeah,
why things are going crazy. And it's just so good to have these grounding conversations, Tom, because it really reminds me of why I'm here. And it reminds me of my rock bottom. And I think, as painful as that is, it's so important
yeah.
because there's no stronger conviction that will come of my life than from those moments. And
Can I can
yeah,
I
go
ask
ahead.
you a quick question?
Yeah.
What was what was the moment that made you want to share the healing experience of others?
Mm.
Or do you have one, or was it like a culmination of things?
So at first when I was healing, I was doing it for myself, right? So the
Yeah.
meditation was for myself. Going to yoga, I was going to yoga like 5:30 in the morning, 6 days a week for like a
Mhm.
year.
Okay.
And then finally, I was getting better. And only then actually did I actually discover this whole science of Ayurveda and all of that. That
I
wasn't
see.
even in my consciousness until then. Um, and when I learned what that was, then I finally had structure in a system that I saw could work. And that was when I was like, that's what I wanna do. I've always wanted to like, my undergrad was actually in psychological services. I always kinda had the inkling that I want to be some kinda counselor. I just
I see.
wasn't ready for it. And I didn't really see the framework being one that's helpful, like, you know, no offense to, like, therapy, I think it's important for certain people, but
Yeah.
for something that's more holistic and systemic, I didn't see anything existing that would work from that standpoint until I discovered what Ayurveda was. So when I that was like, "Oh, this is the thing that I've been waiting for that can help a lot of people, including myself." That's when I made the
Mm,
decision. But, yeah, sometimes it's like you have to wait until the right thing comes along,
yeah.
um, because, like, again, with the ego, it wants to pick the thing that's good enough, and it's not actually good enough. You have to keep digging. So Ayurveda allows me to have something that works, but also encourages me to keep digging. So I'm not done yet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing because it's again, it's not something that you start off with. It's something that you had to discover, and you know that's in the beginning when I said beautiful things come from the darkest places. Like that's literally, I think your your story has been an example of that too. Like you went into these 10-hour meditations. It's isolated, right? You said it
Yeah.
was isolated.
Yeah.
Isolated. It's almost like a cocoon, spraying its wings finally, right? It's so profound, and to hear your version of how that happened and my version of how that happened, it just shows you that we all walk a very similar type of life, and I feel like we're two people that are blessed to get to the point where we could talk about this in this manner, and even you know whether it's recorded or not, just have this chance to connect about this. Whereas there's a lot of people that don't have that luxury, that are still fighting the battle on their own. And that is why I think the most important job in this life is to spread it, to spread as much as you can. I Another thing that I'll share now is like we just found out like we're expecting, trying to keep on DL right now, but it's one of those things where it when I think about this, I think about a conversation I had with one of my good friends, Ramon, and he told me during COVID, Tom, I've done so much in my life, walked so many places and on this earth, but the thing that makes the most sense is I have to raise two good people in this world because that has to balance out the bad.
Mm.
For one reason or another, that that particular quote is in my mind all the time. And it doesn't have to, and I also feel like it doesn't have to be a kid, but it's just the fact that you have a chance to influence someone that could domino effect. And how far do you know this domino could keep going? It might keep going for decades. You don't know that.
Mhm.
But if you don't have the ability to recognize that you could make that first domino hit the second one, you know, that that domino effect might not ever happen.
It's a really good reminder too, because oftentimes, especially in the world of entrepreneurship or business or helping or anything, it's like sometimes you don't know how far your impact will be. And if you're really in this to make a difference, like knowing that you've made even just if you've affected one soul, it's
Yeah.
that's like enough to know that that's worth it, you know? Yeah. So just continuing to be focused on that, on the dharma, on the purpose. Yeah, is really important. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, congratulations again. for
Thank you.
such a yeah, um, for this new discovery chapter, and y life keeps on moving on and developing, and it just I love that, I love that. It we'll always have something new, something to look forward to, and something to discover. Yeah, so I'll let's wrap up the interview, Tom. Like, what is one thing that you wanna leave people with before we sign off for today?
Yeah, I would say, you know, when I started writing this book, I was very self-conscious about it because my biggest fear for this book was that people would think I was just talking about myself without a purpose behind it, right? And I didn't want to do that because I don't necessarily think I'm someone special. Again, I'm just the guy you pass by at the supermarket. I'm just that guy. But there is there is purpose behind my book. There is intention behind my book. My goal has always been that I could show others a a perspective that maybe they haven't seen yet that could help, right? So if there's someone out there that's, in their ashes right now, right? Like drowning in bills, burnout, maybe you're questioning everything. Maybe you've been betrayed by your faith or your partner even, right? I just want them to know what I said about rock bottom is your rock bottom is not about how bad it is. It's about whether you're ready to change.
Mm.
And when you are, things will shift because your situation might be the worst today, but it might not stop getting worse. That's the reality of things is it might not stop. But your soul and your mindset doesn't have to match it. You could choose presence. You could choose perspective. You could choose to be above all the problems by serving something bigger than yourself. So that's what I would like to leave people with is like, if you could live with like an alignment and when you serve others, even in your pain, life will reward you or not even reward. Life will unfold in ways that you won't imagine. And I hope that's something that people could look forward to in their life because it is a very precious life that we have.
Thank you, Tom. So Tom's book is called Through the Wire, Even Through the Fire,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Yeah.
not out
It's,
yet.
yeah. If that sounds familiar, it's a song by Kanye West when he first came out. One of very powerful song that right when I first finished reading my this book for the first time, I had that song in my head, so I went with the title.
Yeah. And do you know when it will be available for others to read?
I'm just now learning that the publishing process could take a lot longer than I expected. So my manuscript is done, you read it, but I think it might take a while for it to actually hit the shelves, but I might have it earlier on Amazon.
Okay.
But I do encourage like if anybody listening and you just maybe wanna talk about this stuff or if you're interested in even reading this manuscript, like I before it goes on sale, I'm open to just showing parts of it. So, I definitely encourage these kind of conversations, especially if you feel like it can help you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. This is I'm very grateful and an honor to be on here.
Thanks for tuning in to From the Ashes. If this episode sparked something in you, remember, your evolution matters, and we're rooting for you every step of the way. For coaching, community, and free resources to help you rise into your full potential, visit thevibrantvisionary.com and download the Vibrant Visionary Blueprint, your free guide to reclaim your energy, clarity, and creative fire. If you love this episode, please share it with a friend or tag me, Valerie, on Instagram at vibrantvisionary.val. I'd love to hear what resonated for you. Until next time, keep rising.